Hi, Zanzibar here. I'm here to show you how I made this three-way mirror. I'll show you how I made it as a regular mirror and a few ways to make it a little more enchanting. I'll also show you how I made a dress and a wedding veil and an attempt at a mannequin. So let's get to it. So I took these mirrors and I arranged them in 3 sections, like as you can see here. I used the Razorwind wall mirrors, but you can also use the Razorwind standing mirror from the housing vendor. Those work just as well. I just liked these because of what the mirror looks like. So I made them as big as they could go and I turned them around because the mirror part on these sticks out in the back. And I tried to match them up so that they touch each other so there wasn't really a gap. But it's fine if there's a gap because you're going to cover it with some doors. So just mess with the angles until it looks good to you. So I placed down this beam just as a guideline of where I wanted to line my stuff up. You'll delete this later. It's not permanent. And then I needed the frame, which is a bunch of doors. These are the elegant carved door. They're from the housing vendor. I used a bunch of these. I didn't really mess with their size, and I'm showing the angles, but they're not too important because you're just going to mess with it at the end. But I'm giving like a gist of like what they kind of need to be angled at. If you're going to make the full-on flower mirror, you actually will delete all of these later, so don't really worry about how they look. But if you're not going to do the flower build and you're just going to do this mirror, then you will care about how it looks in the end. So from an RP perspective, my crafting room is turning into a tailoring shop, and my customers need somewhere to try on their clothing and look at themselves after I've made alterations. So I needed a good mirror, but then I went crazy with flowers and now it's like a really good bridal looking mirror. But that's the simple 3-way framed mirror. With these doors, you can actually dye it if you really want to. So with the frame done, it was time to start the fancy part of the mirror. I got these 3 Kirin Tor glass tables. They're from Jewel Crafting Northrend. And I put them in the middle of each of the mirrors, and then I start messing with the angles and sizing. The wedding mirrors that I saw for Inspo had like these floral edgings, so these fit perfectly because they have a floral edge. I ended up settling on 140% as their size. So I just tried to line up the middle parts, because since I'm going to be covering this with flowers, it's not too important that the edges look perfect. So I just adjust this until I'm happy with how it looks. So now for the flower part. I used a bunch of flowers. I used small poppy clusters, gift of Gilneas, and pink Gilnean rose. I used probably about 10 plus each. It took me, I don't even know how long, 2 hours to do all this. You can use any flower. I just wanted to go for this, I guess, peachy, red, pinky vibe. I recorded all of this and I had to delete so much of it because I just was messing with the flowers. I eventually learned which flower on each decor that I could use, so I eventually get much better at angling all these flowers. These come from the housing vendors, and some of them come from the smugglers, depending if you're in Razorwind Shore or Founder Points. So you're just gonna have to figure out which flowers you're gonna use and which vendor has them. So I tried to space these out as good as I could. So like poppies, and then a red rose, and then a pink rose, just to make it look like it was even throughout. Don't worry about the top and middle part because that's going to be covered up with benches. And I didn't show, but in the end, when I removed all the doors, I needed something to fill the space of the bottom larger gap. So I used these autumn leaf piles because they matched my theme I had going on. And they did a really good job of filling the space that the flowers couldn't quite cover. I really didn't mess with the size of the flowers, but depending on what flowers you pick, you might want to, like if you use the paintbrush flowers, you might want to change the size of them. But I'll leave you to watch the rest of my build log so you get an idea of what to do with all of these flowers. So now for the fancier part of details for the mirror, I used this cinder eye sleeper and I turned it upside down, but you can also just leave it right side up and make a really fancy looking mirror. This comes from Tranquillin Exalted. Now for some more jeweled details, I used the Grand Elven bench, turned it upside down and adjusted it and put it in front of the mirror. I repeat this process for the bottom as well. These are from the housing vendor. Then I wanted some animation because I'm a sucker for animation. So I took these draconic sconces from Second Chair Powdo and I clipped them up into the ceiling so there's some moving crystals. Then I needed a ceiling, so I used the bottom of a cinder eye sleeper because it has a great detail. I turn it to 165 and clip it up. And then depending on what walls you're using, you'll need a gap filler. So I just use some coordinating stormwind beams to fill the gap. Then I add a circular woolen rug. I make it 200% and I dye it poppy pink. Then I need a better corner, so I take these rectangular elegant tables, I make them 140% and I just mess with the edging until it looks good, clipped into the wall. This is what all the benches should look like after you put them all in, and then I dye the red jewels Horde red. And then to make a more detailed ceiling, I took these ornate weapon racks. I have 2 of them. That one's 150% and I turned it sideways and clip it up. And I made sure it matched with that middle line. And then I take another one, but it's at 200%, also clip it up until it looks like that. And then for some added detail, I take the elegant wooden dresser or the grand elven bookcase. I turn these upside down and I use the top as a transitional detail. Choose whichever one you would like. I then take the elegant tight curtain and wall drape and place it as so as a privacy detail. Then to simulate a curtain pole, I take the circular elven table, I turn it upside down and I clip it up into the ceiling and I scale it just enough so that it looks like it would run the curtains across. I also dyed the curtains bone white. Then to simulate a starry ceiling, I take 2 circular woolen rugs. They are dyed navy, and then I take a Kirin Tor Banner and very carefully clip it in because the stars will animate through. I ended up using 2 of these in the end. Now we have my fancy ceiling. So the graded part is the Pandaria fishing net. That's from Pandaria Tailoring. And I clip it up in there, just enough. I wanted more crystals, so I used the Valdrakken chandeliers from Second Chair Powdo. And I think I made them a little bit smaller and then I adjusted them. I used 3 in total and just turned them around until I was happy with where they were. And I wanted a few more crystals. So I took more of the draconic sconces and I made them smaller and also clipped them up into there so that, you know, there's more animation. I think it looks really cool. And at this point I added a second Kirin Tor Banner. I made it as big as it could just for more stars. You could add another one if you want for even more stars, but I was happy with what it was. So then I got bored and started messing with mirrors, so I got a portrait of our lovely Void Mommy and stuck her in there, and she looks pretty cool. So then I got a second portrait and put it in there, just showing that you can put like really anything behind these mirrors to make them look enchanted. Depending on what you put, you might want to delete the mirrors behind. But at this point, my brain was screaming at me, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" So I had to make the mask. So I take this Banshee Queen's banner, make it 120% and angle it just a little bit. And I put it in there. Then I take a Legion Fell Blazer. It's from Legion Remix, the Dreamweaver's Reputation Achievement, and put it in there as like the green fire. Then I take a Preserver Sensor. This is evoker only vendor in Valdrakken because I really liked the swirlies coming out of it. So I stuck it in there. I just messed with it a little bit until I was happy with how it looked. I then take the Fellhammer scouting map from the Demon Hunter class Hall achievement, and I really liked the green that was coming from this, so I stuck it in there. It also lights up the mask. I then take the Netherlight Conclave Voidwell from the Priest class Hall, and I really liked the purple that was coming from this, so I stuck it in just enough to where like the orb was going behind the mask, but it gives like a purple vibe. And then to finish the purple, I took the Grand Drape of the Exiles. This is from Tailoring Outland, and I love this item. It's so useful. I use it to make the top look purple. Then to make the area look a little more alive, I just make a custom couch. I just use the Charming couch and then a Silver Moon small platform, just kind of clipped and angled into there so it looks like that. And then I take a Silver Moon B platform and clip it in the bottom just to finish the illusion. Then I just take a few more items to fill the space. I take a ottoman, a Silver Moon beam, slipped into the ground just to make like a table, another table to make it look like a plate, and then this crafting vase from Valdrakken. Then I dye the couch poppy pink. Then it's time to make the veil. The veil part is the Senderai sleeper. It's clipped into the wall. And then I used all the flowers I used for the mirror plus some more. The goal was to make a flower crown veil. Then I also spend an ungodly amount of time adjusting every single flower, making them smaller, making them bigger, moving them in and out. I spent a lot of time on the crown. I started off with the pink Gilnane roses. Then I take some small poppy clusters and start also adjusting them, filling in space, making it look as good as I possibly can. Then I take, these are the Razor Wind Pink paintbrush, I guess is what they're called. I use those because they looked pretty. These things are so hard to get right. Then I took a big single rose from the Gift of Gilneas and then put it as like my centerpiece. Ignore the gem, I don't include that in my final build. Then to make the edges look like they have some gold trim going on, I take these elegant carved tables and I angle them very specifically until they match up with the side of the veil. I also forgot to record, but the flowers inside the veil, those are the red Razor Wind paintbrush. I just adjusted them until they kind of look like an embroidery detail going on inside the veil. I then repeat this process for the other side. Then I take the Heart of the Forest banner from Tailoring Shadowlands. I adjust it an enormous amount of times until it looks like a little poof going on the veil. Then for a handle, I take a Calderai treasure trove from the Legion achievement and stick it into the wall. And then I'll make a holder out of a Westfall woven basket. This is from a Westfall quest. And then to add like a lacy detail, I take the Grand Drape of the Exiles and put it over veil. However, this changed everything because people now said it looks like a dress. So now I have a new dress, a new veil, and the belt. I posted this on Facebook and everyone said it looked like a dress, so now it needed to be a dress. So I got a new veil and a belt. The belt is Tapestry of the Five Flights. It is Tailoring Dragonflight, and I just clip it in very so slightly so it looks like the belt hanging on the wall. And then the veil, I needed the hanger first. So the hanger is the Dragon's Hoard chest. This is from the Forbidden Reach. I just adjusted it until the gold part was hanging out. And then I needed another holder, which was another Westfall basket. Then the construction of the veil is 2 cinder eye sleepers. We got 1, just the top part. I clipped it into the wall. And then the bottom is another cinder eye sleeper, also angled and clipped into the wall and made small. Pair those together. And then I wanted another crystal. So this crystal is the Augmenter's Opal Banner. It's from the Evoker only vendor in Valdrakken. And I just made it until it looked like it was straight and just put it in there. So then we have the dress, which I worked pretty hard on. So I added a crystal to the middle of the rose, bronze banner of the exiled. It is blacksmithing outland, and I just clipped it on in there. Then I worked on the dress part. I ended up using a Sentinel's Moon Wing Glaze from Legion Remix, and I scaled it to 50%, and I angled it quite extensively until I could get it looking like it does there. Then for the extra fabric, I used a elegant elven canopy bed. This is from the housing vendor. I just adjusted its size and clipped it in there. Then for the boobies, I used an elegant carved bench. I dyed it to match the dress, and then I just angled it. And then one important detail that I wanted to add, which was a crystal. So I just took another draconic sconce and stuck it in there. And then for like that part, it kind of looks like cleavage or something. It's just the Heart of the Forest banner. I just adjusted it a little bit until it made that like V shape. And then for the sleeves, they're the hollow bench. This is from Inscription Outland, and I just adjusted it until it matched the angle of the drapes, so it looked like that had arms. The clips on the wall holding the sleeves are just wooden mugs. And then I just added some more details. A side table using Silver Moon beams, and then some books or the catalogs if you're ordering a dress, and then some tea. Because as you can see, someone's here for their final fitting. And then I threw some pillows on the couch. Now for the mannequin. This was quite hard to figure out because it is curved. There's not a whole lot of objects that can match the curve of a mannequin. The bottom of this is the Cowdery fence post. It's from Legion. I just turned it upside down and stuck it into the ground. Then the post is a Dalaran post. It's from Inscription Northrend. I just made it smaller, also clipped it into the ground. Then this is supposed to be like the hem gauge. It is a gnomish fence. I made it smaller, stuck it in there. And then next to it, it's supposed to be like how you adjust it up and down. I just used a spoke sconce from Jewel Crafting Cataclysm. And then for the torso, I need something that curved, that had like hips. So the Gilnean spare saddle from Leatherworking Cataclysm fit that bill pretty good. You're gonna have to adjust how big and where it is because of the next piece. So the next piece is the Tempest Keep Cryopod, and I chose this specifically because the bottom back of it had the look of a top of a torso for the mannequin. So you stick it in there and you just get to mess with it until it looks okay. And then for the dials, I just used elegant table lamps. I just made them smaller and I just angled them in there. And we just have 1 and 2. And then for the top, for like the pin cushion, you can use like this cushion over here, or you can use the wicker basket. And I just dyed it and angled it. And then to simulate a needle, I used a elegant lawn flamingo from Undermine, just the tip of the foot. And then for my thread, I used the rocket, unpowered rocket from Undermine, and just angled it until the thread matched up with my janky looking needle. Since the back looks really bad, I recommend sticking this against the wall. And that's it for my build log slash semi-tutorial. If you have any questions, just leave me a comment below. I'll try to answer any of them that I see. If you're interested in any more housing content, like and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed my video. I hope it gave you some inspo. Hope you all have a good one. Goodbye.